Welcome to Africa's Side Hustle, where resilience meets innovation. Well, across the continent, individuals are redefining the notion of work and financial freedom. While in this digital era, side hustles and online gig work are rewriting the rules. Well, on our second episode, we delve into this transformative landscape with Lesley-Anne Gatter, Investec's Global Head of People and Organization. Well, welcome to the show. And just getting straight onto it, is the gig economy a disruptor or a catalyst for business growth?
Thanks so much. It's good to be here. The answer is yes to both. The gig economy is a disruptor and it's catalytic, and it depends how it's going to be utilized in order to really leverage the opportunity. So the idea is that if companies see the gig economy as a total disruption and try to close it out, they're going to miss out on exceptional talent, the capability to really leverage skills across the globe and across different sectors, and able to access people who want to work in very new and nuanced ways across the globe and across the continent and across the country. If you instead embrace it and see that we can really access skills, capability, time in a very, very different way, then yes, it becomes catalytic to our workforce, catalytic to understanding how skills, especially technology and other new emerging and disruptive skills, can be accessed, and the ways in which we can build out on initiatives, on projects, and on different pieces of work. Like everything, it's got a downside and pieces that really do need to be managed. And it will be interesting to explore more about how you manage these pieces.
So what policies or guidelines can companies establish to prevent conflicts of interest in a shared workforce?
So, look, the idea that we could constrain people is interesting, given that gig workers often don't want to be constrained. They don't want to sign up with companies that put too many guardrails and too many parameters in place that really limit their ability to work. But the primary and overriding piece that we do put into contracts and into policies is about sector specifics. So you don't want people working directly inside your competitors. And if they're going to work inside your competitors, you don't want them to work directly on projects that are of very similar nature to what you're doing. Sometimes our competitive advantages are what we think they are. Sometimes they're not what we think they are. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But the idea that we would get people to work inside boundaries that really are curtailed and managed through understanding the competitive landscape, the sector that they're working in, and then the hub in which that takes place, should guard us against conflict of interest. I think, unfortunately, though, some companies put very, very wide rails in so that they disregard the ability to work in, on any platforms that are remotely similar, or any spaces or sectors that are even similar. I prefer, and we prefer, the idea of thinking of the world as a little bit more porous than that, and that where things can really contribute to overall growth, to sector growth, to country work, to big impact and scale pieces, that we think that we can, work a little bit more fluidly and a little bit more helpfully in that. But by and large, we have to protect our competitive edges. And so it's really about saying what spaces you can work in, what platforms, and what directly competes, and being realistic about what actually does compete.
Just getting an in-depth analysis, how are businesses redefining their cultures to accommodate freelance and contract workers within the workplace?
So I think we've largely accepted that people who are going to be contractors, well, depending on how they contract, depending on how they freelance, and the amount of time that they're giving you, but people who are largely working remotely on the edge of your organization are going to live on that edge. And while they are going to be in touch with the culture as they interface and engage with your organization, they are not going to be culturally inculcated. They're not going to be deeply involved inside your culture. So you're going to have distances or ways of engaging people who work with you without having the same demands or requirements of them from a culture point of view. You're not going to need them to be as inculcated as others, given the proximity with which they work to your organization. The reality is, though, is culture can be created in many ways. Culture can be created online. Culture can be created through remote and hybrid working. Culture, in our view, is best created through direct contact in office together. But that is for the people who have great proximity to your organization and require that proximity to do the work. If you don't require that level of proximity, there's no reason why you don't or won't want to access a high level of skill. The truth, though, is, which is a very interesting thing we're finding across the globe and through all, CHROs and similar positions, CPOs across forums that we sit on and I sit on, is that most people, as soon as they touch your culture and understand what proximity permits and allows, really often choose to be part of the organization. And we have more people who start off less proximate, wanting to have greater proximity to our organization and seeking to be permanent employees and more inside the organization than outside it.
I heard you talking about skills right there. So what skills or training programs should organizations invest in to prepare for employees for the changing workforce?
It's the question everybody's asking, and that we all want to know. And I think we have a very specific view inside our organization. But I think really what we're all looking at is the better jobs. What are the better jobs and what enables the better jobs? So when computers and robots come with AI and, all the kinds of learning that they're going to be able to do and take over roles that are mundane, that can be automated, that are better done by machines and much better enabled by machines, then what will the people do? The people will do the sentient things. They will do the things that require great levels of interpretation and analysis, great levels of intuition, and ethical and integrity overviews. So the two bodies of thought out there are: you should be investing in philosophy, in ethics, in problem solving and sentient capability for your people. And the other thing is that we should have outrageous AI capability.
How will HR strategies adapt to accommodate the shifting boundaries between work and personal life?
Since COVID, we've had this reality upon us that has been people. Many people found working from home extremely isolating, extremely difficult, and access was hard and complicated to get around. Other people really appreciated the work-life balance and understood that the ability to be at home for much longer periods of time, especially where your commute or your transport is complicated, offered a much greater level of ease, working more about flexibility. We've always spoken about an out culture that seeks to have strong levels of delivery, that we aren't focused on hours, but we are definitely focused on performance. And within that performance, we've always understood that human beings work here. They have high needs for flexibility and a great deal of compassion in understanding their personal lives. At the end of the day, though, organizations have to make choices around what their culture demands and requires in order to be high functioning and thrive. Our culture, particularly, I said, we are a highly relational space. We need to be in relationship with each other in order to get work done. And so we prize flexibility, but in-office engagement. Other organizations may build part or hybrid capability. I think if you're not thinking about it, you're missing the reality and the demand of what's happening on a day-to-day basis in the world of work.
Well, are there any success stories of employees turning side hustles into full-time business ventures or significantly contributing to growth?
I'm sure there's so many stories that we found. Inside our own organization, we've seen people who built, given need and necessity, maybe more than passion or interest, built side hustles either through the food and hospitality industry, and who we've sought to enable through our enterprise development programs in going to pursue their dreams, when actually they found that they became more passionate, even though it began as a necessity, into hospitality, into restaurants, into food and catering capability. And we've used our enterprise development to allow them to flourish in places and spaces that they're interested in. It would be really interesting to see where it's a side hustle that's actually lucrative and aligned to the business and hasn't presented a conflict of interest. So people have been able to engage with it that the organization actually either purchases or incorporates that activity into its business and day-to-day work.
And just before I let you go, how can organizational culture and values support or hinder the growth of side hustles among employees?
And the first thing organizations always want to establish is that the side hustle is not a conflict of interest from two angles. A, that it doesn't take a fortune of time away from the employees' day-to-day activity and the reason why you're actually paying them to be inside the organization. And B, that it doesn't compete and that the employee is not using internal intelligence and information to enable the side hustle. So organizations are very protective, A, of what we know, and then B, of what we do, and then our resources in terms of why we're paying those people. I think given the economy, given how many people employees are supporting inside their families and wider extended family systems, the idea that we could help people earn more without it just being an organizational direct responsibility is interesting. And again, it goes to flexibility and really building out skills that enable a growth economy and a growth mindset inside the organization. So it would be amazing to see organizations embracing and enlarging their learning and development policies to allow people to study broader than what they're just employed to do in order to build out skills for other sectors or other spaces like their home lives that they're interested in.
Well, thank you for joining us for today, Leslie. And that's Lesley-Anne Gatter, Investec's Global Head of People and Organization. As we conclude today's episode, remember that Africa's entrepreneurial spirit is unstoppable. Turn your passions into profits and join the movement. Share your side hustle story with us on social media using #AfricaSideHustle, and let's build a community of innovators and game changers. Don't forget to subscribe for more entrepreneurial stories, business news, and insights on CNBCAfrica.com. Till next week.